Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Almost a double.
Double loss, too?
Double loss. Oh, boy. This feels like a good one, Jeff.
Looks like a good one.
I love crappie fishing. Man, I love crappie fishing. I like to use the rocket bobber myself because what happens with that rocket bobber, it stands up when you get a bite. So that's absolutely perfect right there. Beautiful crappie. And you can get the distance out of that rocket bobber. Oh yeah, double crappie. Woo-hoo, that's a good one.
Oh yeah.
You know, the cool part about fishing up here in northern Wisconsin is you want to fish walleyes, go to a great walleye lake. You want to fish crappies, you go to a great crappie lake, and some lakes have both. Unbelievable.
And the piece
you
of
wonder how many fish are sitting up there.
The piece of weed we're fishing there is like the size of this boat.
Really, that's it,
You
huh?
can kind of see that little brown right there.
Yep, I do.
That's it. And they're all just in there.
Just stacked right up like that.
Right on top of each other.
Ooh, that's a little bit better one here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Ooh.
That's a whopper.
Nice fish. You can see the big belly on her. Let her go. Ooh. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. Hungry. You know, it's amazing how those fish, they flip that switch from just super, you know, super pouty, super grumpy, super uncomfortable in the shallows. You get a little weather change after a day or two of warm up, and it's amazing how good it can be. And the best part is all the fair weather people are not here.
Yeah, that's what I love. I love fishing on days like today.
Not going to have anybody watching you out here today. Get them, Larry.
Jeepers. Oh, yeah, that is a nice one. Right there. Check out this one, you guys. That is a beautiful, beautiful crappie.
This is like the peak of crappie fishing, in my opinion. You can find them pre-spawn like this, loaded up before they hit the beds. You know, you get a lot of people say, you know, when they're on the beds, this or that, but honestly, this is my favorite. It's fine when they're on the beds and up shallow. It's fun to pick at them that way too, but when they're stacked up like this, fresh out of the basin, just a couple, 2-3 days out of the deep, and they are hungry, there's not much more that brings out the kid in the guy.
No, and it's hard. I mean, it doesn't honestly. Timing is everything when it comes to filming a show, and we're definitely obviously at the peak of the window right here, and the conditions are perfect like you're talking about. There's a lot of days where you go out and you hunt hard and you come up with 5 or 10, you know, that's a pretty good day. But today, like today, I mean, we just got out here. We've only been out here for probably the last, 10, 15 minutes. And it's been pretty repetitious as far as the amount of fish. As soon as that bobber hits, twitch it a couple of times and fish on. I'm gonna let this one go too.
I've only had 2 casts that came back without a fish. It was just because I lost them. It's a pretty fun 10 minutes. What a great fish. So whether you're working a slip bobber or a clip-on bobber, it's a pretty simple deal when you're fishing, pan fishing the shallow with plastics. You know, you want something that comes up, you want something that's grammed out pretty good, meaning that's got enough weight so that the bobber isn't super, super buoyant and it goes down easily. These weighted ones, this is a fill, but any of the weighted slip bobbers are my preference because it makes it stand up right away, especially if it's a slip bobber so it doesn't have to go down sideways. The line kind of makes its way through. You want that bobber to stand up and makes a nice, easy path for the line to go down and get set and true right away. Bobber stop, a bead, slip bobber. And on this one, I've got a pair of 3/0 weights. I prefer to use the ones without the ears because it cuts down on catching through the water when you're pulling it through. If you're fishing a river with a lot of current or here where you're actually moving the bait and trying to get motion out of it, when you have eared shot, which means the kind that clip on, clip off, that ear can actually make the line go this way and it can make your bait swim over to the side and make it spin a little bit. I like the nice round shot to keep it nice and smooth in the water. Put them tight together like that, about 1 foot, 10 inches up from the bait, and then tie on a small, say 32nd ounce jig head. And make sure your plastic, it doesn't really matter what plastic you're using, especially if the fish are aggressive, but make sure whatever plastic you use, it's on there nice and straight, and it gives you a nice even glide. Don't overthink it. One thing you can do if you know you're gonna be fishing in place is straighten out your knot like this, so it's vertical, and it makes that bait hang like this a lot better in the water column. That's if they're super finicky. When they're really biting heavily, it doesn't really matter, versus like this where it's just kind of hanging down and sneaking through the water. But if you can do this, you could also use a loop knot if you wanted, but I'm using a clinch knot like this. But if you train it like that, you'll get a lot more hits on those finicky fish, especially in shallow water where it hangs nice and horizontal like that.
Hey Jeff, let's talk about conditions. What Why is today such a key day? Why are these fish biting as good as they're biting?
So these fish are in pre-spawn right now. And you know, a lake in a given year, it doesn't matter if it's for muskies, it doesn't matter if it's for walleyes, it's the whole system. It goes in cycle, right? So it all goes through a certain stage. All the fish go through their spawning cycles. And if you can find that magical time when the crappies are in pre-spawn, the muskies are actively spawning, the walleyes will be in their post-spawn feed. The bass are up usually in pre-spawn yet. Some of them might be starting to bed, especially largemouth if you have some back bays. Right. It typically is about that mid 50-degree range. And it has to be sustained there. It can't be like, oh, I was out, it was a 70-degree day, the water hit 55 and magically everything flips a switch. It's usually not how it goes. It usually has to be sustained and well mixed. You might even see water temps at 60 and not have things where they are right now. But after the wind mixes it up and everything and it stays that way for about 48 hours, 36, 48, 72 hours, it's usually about what kicks it off.
Hey, when it comes to, like, let's say, I don't know anything about this lake. I looked on the DNR maps. It's supposed to be a good crappie lake. Where should I start on a lake like this?
That's a great question. And the answer is going to be wherever the biggest weed flats are is usually
so
where
it doesn't have anything to do with directional?
It can be.
Right.
But a lot of times you're going to want to start with where the weeds are at and then go back from there. If you've got good weeds on, say, the north side, south side, east side, anything on the north shore is always a great place to start because typically it gets the most sun for the day.
Okay.
And then, you know, evening sun, morning sun. If you have suitable spawning habitat in all locations, you'll see fish in all of them. Basically two major things that you're looking for crappies. You got one, big weed flats, or two smaller isolated weed patches. The spot we're fishing right now is a weed patch that's just a little taller than the rest of the remnant weeds. It's the size of this boat.
Okay.
I went through and I was scouting and I found it. There's 50 crappies all on it. And so you wait for that warm day. Now you get a little weather maker, the water's warmed up nicely. The water's about 4 degrees warmer than it was out here 2 days ago, and now they flip that switch. But when you get them and you know that they're going to be concentrated versus trying to find them roaming a vast weed flat, you know that your baits are going to be in front of those fish, and you know you're going to get more soak time in front of them, and you're going to get more bites. And if they happen to be aggressive like this, well, of course you're going to hammer them. But if they're not, and you need to put minnows out there, something a little bit more in a cold front condition where they're, you know, if this stays for 2 days, these fish are going to be a lot less aggressive than they are right now. So on some of these isolated weed patches, you can see here, you can see right here, this is what a school of panfish looks like over a little bit of weeds. We're off a break right here, comes up a little higher, there's a little bit of weeds, and those fish are sitting up suspended off of that. There you go. But that's a classic example of seeing a school of crappies sitting over some weeds. You got bottom right here, you got weeds coming up about 2-3 feet. Nice.
Oh, crappie. Just a little twitch.
Yep. And you can see I'm just a little far, I'm just a touch off that patch.
Yep.
And they won't touch it. You
That's
were just
amazing.
on the inside of it there. Ooh, that's a dandy, Larry.
Oh, that is a dandy.
That's a whopper.
That's what we're talking about. Big old crappie. Loving it right there. She gone.
That's another dandy.
Look at that mouth coming in.
Put a golf ball in there.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, that one's got her swallowed.
Oh. Yeah. So you can tell when they're hungry.
This is a toad. I seen it turn.
You got a big one?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I seen it turn. When you set the hook and you're, 40 yards
you
out,
net on that one, Larry?
Yeah, and you see the side of that crappie.
Well, this is a nice light net.
It's a great net.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I knew right away. Hold that one up, Jeff.
Oh, that one's got some shoulders.
Yeah, I knew right away that was a big fish. I'm loving that.
Oh,
that
nothing better than watching bobbers dunk.
Oh yeah,
big silver.
Like I
fish
said, how often is it when you go to set the hook
Oh.
and you see that side of a crappie that you know that that's a tank? Nice.
You there, Larry?
Yeah, who's it? Oh,
hold on.
This
Hold
is
on.
definitely, look at the size of this one. That's definitely.
That's what we came for. There it is. Oh, I was hoping we'd see a couple of those today.
Dan.
Nice, man.
Absolutely a tank of all tanks.
Not bad when you got like a 12 pluser in your hand and you see one coming in and hold on, let me get the net.
Absolute giant right there. What are you thinking on this one? 13?
I'm going to say 14 even. That one's almost 15. Mouth closed, tail
Holy, almost 15?
Yeah, there you go.
Woo!
Bumper tight with the mouth closed, 14 and a half all day long.
Yeah, that's
a whopper.
a giant crappie.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
man.
and again, you can see, this is one we had kept. Well, this one fell. We were keeping a couple smaller, but I mean, you see like the difference in the size. It's, 14 and a half. That's a dandy crappie.
That's a tank.
Get her back in there. There we go.
Woo-hoo-hoo. That's a big crappie.
Those fish are a lot older than most people realize. Just because the fish are smaller, panfish versus something like a muskie, people don't necessarily realize that might be a 10, 12, 15-year-old fish.
A crappie will live that
yeah,
long,
when you start
huh?
getting up to that 14, 15, that can be easily a 10 to 12 plus year old fish.
Oh, that looks like a nice one too.
That's a pot of dandies in there, no doubt.
Oh, double up. Double up again. A lot of doubles.
Yeah, I might need to net that one.
Yeah, that's definitely a netter.
Goodness. Man, never gets old.
No, it doesn't. We're awful fortunate. That's all I gotta say. Now the educated ones are left.
Oh yeah.
Now would be a minnow time if you were gonna use them.
If you're gonna really sit on just one group of fish,
Yep.
for sure. And more will move in and stuff too. But right now, a lot of times when you kind of think about it, when these cool downs come or just a little break after a nice warming trend, it's kind of like hitting the pause button on the spawning thought.
Yeah.
It's like time to refuel. You know?
Yep. Hey everybody, this week's tip of the week brought to you by our good friends up at Mike's Country Meats, the finest jerky on the planet. Hey, Mr. Van Remortel, you know what? You always have good tips. And you know what? We talk a lot about this. Little things make a big difference. And let's talk a little bit about what your tip is.
You know, I mean, there's a million times you've seen crappies on TV or you've seen people talk about it, but you never really, one might be wondering why you use a certain type of bobber for this. The biggest thing to remember with these is that you're looking to how that jig moves through the water. So when you pull it and it's on an attached, now it doesn't matter if it's a rocket bobber, a regular, any kind of clip-on. You always want to use like a pencil bobber of some sort, something that's long and thin like that. But no matter what you got, if you got it clipped on the line, the bobber doesn't move. So it's going to pull, and the bobber is the pivot point where it'll come through the water, and that bait and the line are fixed amount of line out between the bait and the bobber, and it'll pendulum forward. If you're a big rip and wrap guy or anything like that where you pop it up and you feel that bait pendulum forward like that, you know how crucial that is in getting bit. Because if it just falls all wonky down to the bottom, yeah, you might get bit, but you're not going to get bit nearly as much as if you get that pop, pendulum, glide. And on these, you're going to get that where you pull it through the water, the bobber stops, makes a new pivot point, and the line gently glides down like this versus going up through the guides.
Right.
All right, now on a slip bobber, when you go to try to do that same thing and cover any amount of water, the line goes, if you're say 4 feet down, you go to pull it, it immediately goes down to the weights, and now this jig has come up this high in the water column and then will fall straight down.
Yep.
Versus getting that nice pull forward and pendulum down. So a couple of times when the slip bobber is better versus the clip-on is one, for live bait, a lot of times it's better. Two, if you're fishing really far from the boat, it's going to increase your hookups. A lot of times it's in deeper water. Right. Anything less than 3 feet, you're probably fine with either, provided you can make a long enough cast.
Right.
All right. Rocket bobber helps with that to get it out there further. If it's just a regular balsa bobber, you're not going to be able to cast as far, but it'll still work just fine. But when you've got live bait and anything deeper than about 3 feet, the slip bobber is crucial. That's key. You're going to get a lot more fish, and you can also work plastics deeper that way if you're in 4 or 5 feet. And you can just jiggle it in place because you're able to kind of vertical jig as the float comes in versus having to pull and cover a large amount of water. Conversely, if you're shallow with a clip-on bobber, that's the key. I mean, again, both will work, but that's where this really shines is if you're trying to get through those shallow weedy bays in that 2-3 feet of water and cover a lot more water, especially if you're in a weed flat versus a small isolated patch that's covered with fish like we are today. You're wanting to cover more water, and you're able to do that more effectively and get bit more often by keeping that bait in the strike zone a lot more often with the clip-on bobber versus the slip bobber where that bait is going to go up and make a little bit more of an erratic motion versus that nice clean sweep.
Absolutely excellent tip like always, Mr. Van Remortel. Hey, again, this week's tip of the week brought to you by our good friends up at Mike's Country Meats, the finest jerky on the planet. Crapperonis! Nice crap.
Nice little eater, yeah, for sure. Well, Larry, what do you think? That's a pretty good day.
I'm thinking, Jeff, a couple more crappies, and it's, I just had one. It's such an addiction,
Right, it's hard, right?
Yeah, it is.
Bobbers keep going down. It's hard for me to say no.
Loving it.
Get him, Larry.
Jeff, what a great way to end the day. You know what? Again, it's always a pleasure fishing with you, my friend. Hey, let's talk real quick. I always like to do this when I'm with you, is let's talk real quick about the Muskie Academy.
Yeah, so the Muskie Academy, it's Muskie with a Y, academy.com is where you can go to check it out. You can see a good long list of the course rubric there. We're getting about 240 videos, something like 28 hours of content in there, and it breaks down lakes, where you should be fishing, what you should be fishing with, what conditions are good for each time of the year, goes through the seasonal cycles, everything from discussion on basic stuff to super advanced. Everything you need to know to catch more muskies is in there, and it's paired up with the online community, a private members only group on Facebook. I post a weekly report every Friday, basically trying to help you, one, become your own guide, and two, start on third base as you head into the weekend, you know, to give you all the advantage you can, take the most advantage of that time on the water.
Hey Jeff, let's tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
You can find the Muskie Academy, Muskie with a Y, academy.com, or you can find me at any social media, Instagram, Facebook, Jeff Van Remortel, WDH Guide Service, 920-639-6286.
Hey everybody, like we do each and every week, we always want to thank all of our military men and women for the great service they have given this country and continue to give this country, along with all of our firefighters and paramedics, and no doubt all of our law enforcement agents. Hey, it is a great day to be alive. We'll see you guys and gals again next week, and thanks for joining us.
Good call.
Here, this is what I do.
That's the JVR stool. You go there, the high chair.